is.
Hold no punches!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
Today is Tuesday, March 5th, 2024. Coming up on Roland Martin Unfiltered, streaming live on the Black Star Network during Tuesday's Trustee Board meeting in Dolton, Illinois. Mayor Tiffany Henyard gets hit with some fiery words. We'll show you what was said and how she responded. The banking industry is fuming after the Biden administration announced the new credit card late fee rules, capping the price at $8. A new study says cyberbullying in the form of online racial discrimination is an issue that can lead to PTSD symptoms in Black youth, which causes suicide. Plus, Kellogg CEO suggested that low-income families eat cereal for breakfast and also dinner to save money, and said, you know what? It's good for us that they're having tough times. Yeah, he actually said that. And also, the White House and Democrats should be full-throated embracing Vice President Kamala Harris's remarks regarding the ceasefire she delivered in Selma on Sunday. I'll explain why. It's time to bring the funk on Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. Let's go.
He's got it. Whatever the miss, he's on it. Whatever it is, he's got the scoop, the fact, the find. And when it breaks, he's right on time and it's rolling. Best believe he's knowing. Putting it down from sports to news to politics. With entertainment just for kicks, he's rolling. It's on go, y'all. It's Roland Martin, yeah. Rolling with Roland now.
All right, folks, it was pretty wild on Monday in Dolton, Illinois, where they had their monthly board meeting, and citizens, trustees, and the mayor went back and forth. It was, again, absolutely insane. Here's some of what happened.
I want to start off by saying self-accountability is a bad thing in this administration. The mayor can blame everybody for what's going on, but she has to look at herself. Nobody told her to get on TV and lie like that. Blatant lies. Did you spend this on a credit card? No, sir. I don't know where they got that from. That's unexcusable. These are easily verifiable lies. That's unacceptable. That immediate attention didn't kick up until them lies came out on WGN. Nobody was really paying attention for checking for Dolton like that until then. Also, the financial reports. Who's the finance chair? Stan Brown. Does Stan know anything about the finances? Can he answer any questions? The trustees don't have the credit card receipts. The mayor's village reports and financial reports. Does Stan have it? Because the rest of the trustees don't have it. And she's going to say everybody's lying. They do have it. The attorney general is asking for credit card receipts. I guess the attorney general is lying too. So this is where we're at in the village. It's self-accountability, and the mayor can blame everybody. I know she wants to say I'm a black woman, and it's because I'm a woman. You know how many women that she's affecting? Look at what she did to Dr. Scott down the street. She won't even let her open up. Look how she talks to the other black women up here. These are all single mothers, just like her. Look how she talks to them. Look how she talks to the clerk who's old enough to be her mother. Look how disrespectful she is. If y'all can't see that, a lot of y'all do see that. I just don't refuse to see it. She's so disrespectful. And she told Brittany, don't say nothing else. I don't want to hear from you no more. How do you talk to an adult like that who's elected? Everybody that works for her know how disrespectful she is. So department heads, be careful. Like Chief lied last time and got caught out. The cars were about to get repoed. Oh, that's handled, Trustee House, when it clearly wasn't handled. So when you be careful, there's life after this girl, and you have to move on. And if you're on camera lying for her because she told you to lie, believe me, it's all recorded. Everything's recorded. And be careful not to lie on something that can easily be proven that you lied. The chief said it was handled. It wasn't handled. They almost repossessed the cars. That's unacceptable. Unacceptable. So trustees, residents, keep watching the Dolton Trustee YouTube page. We're going to keep putting this madness out here because it got to stop. It got to stop. And again, nobody was checking for this until the mayor got on TV and lied right through the camera, smooth, without a bite in the eye. That is dangerous when you can lie like that easily, or stuff that you know can be verified is true. So thank y'all so much. Trustees, keep fighting, keep holding this administration accountable, keep fighting for transparency, and don't let her bankrupt this town and then blame it on y'all.
I'm Valerie Stubbs, former trustee for the Village of Dolton, 23-year resident, been in politics all my adult life. I'm 65 and I've been in politics ever since I was 18. It was a statement made by Keith Freeman that the Village of Trustees would not vote on to take a bond out for Homewood disposable. Well, for $1.4 million. Correct me if I'm wrong. The residents pay over $2 million every year for Homewood disposable that's included in their water bill. So I wanted to know why in the world would you want to take out a bond that the residents have to pay along with the interest, notwithstanding after you pay the $1.4 million, you have $600,000 to the good. It was also stated, and that gentleman said it best, that Mr. Keith Freeman, if you can't take care of the business of your own house and pay your bills, and this is public information, and you have to file bankruptcy, and you do not include both of your salaries, the one from Thornton Township, I don't know what your position there is because I have FOIA and my FOIAs don't get answered. And also the village administrator. I've asked, are you a village administrator, 1099 or with benefits, or are you just a plain 1099? So today, I'm asking that you either step down or the trustees for the village of Dolton that voted you in to vote you out because you are no good for the residents of this community.
Greetings to the citizens, elected officials, and media especially. We need the media simply because there are strategic power outages at certain times throughout these proceedings, just like last week. And denials notwithstanding, we know that's a blatant lie. Secondly, I usually address most of my comments to the audience, but I'm going to talk to Tiffany Henyard and Keith Freeman. Keep my name out of your mouth, okay? Now, unless you want it back, because you will get it back. I'm just letting you know face to face. I'm not going behind your back. I'm telling to your face, please, we're not on a first name basis. Let's not pretend anymore, okay? We got that? I hope you got that. Next, I couldn't believe I looked at this agenda and saw the word secret squirrel on a freaking, on a professional agenda for a village. If you look on that first page, she has secret squirrel meeting on there. You know what made that necessary? 11 council meetings. There have been 11 meetings like this that have been canceled where the trustees get to get their agenda items on the agenda, and they have been unilaterally canceled by this secret squirrel administration because squirrels hide stuff. They bury stuff in the wintertime and hide that dirt. This is what is happening right now. So if you want to put secret squirrel on a freaking agenda, get some help. Secondly, City Hall, this City Hall that we pay for has been shut down 11 times in a row. That's why we have to have those other meetings. We can't even get access to our City Hall. Okay, think about that for a minute. Only because people want to hide their little secret squirrel agendas and then come back and rant and rave and insult people when they bring it up. That is absolutely pathetic. And I was wondering, is the Auditor General aware of what's going on here? If we can get something get the Auditor General in here, because there is no way all of this paperwork has been, keeps staying hidden. The secret squirrel has buried it. So we need to deal with the secret squirrel's lack of transparency. This is what we got here. So we can sit up here and pretend this is an official proceeding, but there's another official proceeding that's supposed to happen every third week in the month, and it hasn't happened 11 times straight, and that is obviously intentional. So enough is enough, okay? If you're not going to be professional about it, you need to step down and leave us the hell alone.
All right, folks. Again, it was a lot of drama at the Dolton City Council meeting. Now, let me know if y'all have the video, because the mayor was also going off on people. You had the city clerk okay, let's roll it.
First and foremost, I want to say thank you to the residents of Dolton for keeping me in your prayers. Thank you for loving on me, sending me uplifting messages. I do need that. As you can see, our village, our community, myself, we are under attack. It's a shame that people can come to meetings and just tell one-sided stories and not get the entire side of both stories. In the next week or two, you will hear myself speak to anything anyone has spoken about me, anything anyone has put out there, because it's facts over fiction for me. So I will state facts, I will show receipts, and I will make sure that our community is back together as one, because there's always one band, one sound. And I don't want people to get away from loving on each other, because there's so much hatred in the world that it amazes me how people can get together and come to a board meeting and just have hate in their heart and not love on each other, try to uplift one another. So my goal is to still continue to do that. What I ran for office for, I ran because I was and still am the people's mayor. I would not stop loving on you and providing a way for you. I wish that people will put facts out there, such as the money that we win and we got awarded. We don't have it. It's coming down the pipeline now for our community. All the programs that we create, all the housing issues that's in our community that we are standing in the fire for. I also want people to know that we help pay your light bill, gas bill, water bill. We even help you bury loved ones. We even did a mortgage and rental assistance, which was really, really dope. A lot of people came out to get assistance. These are things that people don't tell you that we do. Mental health. You guys know I'm really big on helping people get through whatever that issue is in their life at that moment, because people need help now. They don't need your help when you win or when you're successful. They need you when they're going through their hardship. And that's what I always have done, and I'm going to continue to do. Lead my people, provide a way for them, and go get resources and bring back to community. Because right now, the Black and brown communities are always last to get anything. And right now, today, our communities are first to get things.
Folks, but that was some back and forth between the city clerk and the mayor. This was crazy.
When could we get a copy of all the ordinances, resolutions, intergovernment agreements, all of that stuff?
Oh, I really need copies of the intergovernment.
Well, I'm asking, when can we get a copy of all those
copies
things?
of those too. First of all, you have to be specific. The clerk maintains the records of the village. So if there's something specifically you want, just like attorneys and everyone asks, they don't ask for everything. They ask for specific items. I am not to give you all of my records. I am the keeper of the records, okay?
You are, and that's not what I'm asking.
I'm still talking.
Go ahead.
Respect. So I'm the keeper of the records. If there's something specific you want, I have no problems turning it over. I have never refused to turn anything over. But to tell me to give all my files to you, that's incorrect. That's incorrect.
Okay.
That's all. I'm done with that.
All right, as long as you're done. All right. I'm asking for every single record that our village had. And when I'm asking for it, that don't mean you give me your originals. That means you make me a copy of them and you give me a copy of everything we're asking for. We've asked for ordinances, resolutions, intergovernment agreements, and you have not gave us anything. He had put it in email, meaning the village administrator has, and myself. We've asked, and you have not gave us anything. So what day can I come down and you make me copies of everything, and then I have what you have?
And just a point of reference, everything that you put on the agenda, I never get the original copy of.
Let's go back to what I'm asking you. What day can I come and get?
I get those? I'm not going to give you every record in my office because I'm the keeper of the records. I maintain the records of this village. Nobody else. I do. So if you want something specific, you can ask me for it, but you do not get all of my records. And I'm done with this conversation.
Okay, clerk. You do know that I'm gonna educate you again about the law, and I'll educate the public. The mayor has the right to review any record in our village at any given time, for those that don't know how the rules work. So I'm asking again, the clerk, can I have the records, meaning a copy? You keep the original. I'm not asking for the original. I want a copy of what I'm supposed to check out that you're not allowing me to check out. So are you refusing me the opportunity to come in your office to review all the records, clerk? Are you refusing to allow me to do that, Clerk Key? Because we can go, I come down tomorrow at 9 a.m. But I want y'all to see that it's another side to all this. Y'all see the mess, whatever narrative they put out there. But you see that I don't even get things to do my job as it relates to an ordinance or resolution. Something so simple. You can just email it to me in all honesty. But I don't have it. And I'm asking her if she just went on mute, as you always see. And that's why nothing get done as it relates to them. And then we have to go and fight and go back and forth about, can you FOIA the records? Why would I FOIA something that I'm entitled to get as a mayor? As a mayor, that's my job, for those that don't know that. But okay, she ain't got nothing else to say. Moving on, village administrative report.
My pound, Dr. Mustafa Santiago Ali, former senior advisor for environmental justice at the EPA out of D.C., Joe Richardson, civil rights attorney out of L.A., and Gavin Reynolds, contributor of The Root, and former speechwriter for Vice President Kamala Harris, joining us from New Haven, Connecticut. I don't know what in the hell is in the water in Dolton, Illinois, Mustafa, but it's utterly insane. I've covered crazy councils, and I dare say what we're seeing in Dolton, Illinois is one of the most childish, petty, ridiculous relationships ever. And there are some critical questions. There's some questions that I've asked the mayor when I asked about her foundation that they did not fully answer. You've got individuals with full-time jobs in the city of Dolton who also have full-time jobs with Thornton Township, and I'm confused because it's the same working hours. And so if you're the mayor, how do you have people working for you in the city of Dolton who also works for you in Thornton Township and they're full-time jobs? And this whole back and forth over records and all that sort of stuff like that, I mean, it's crazy. I don't know if Iyanla Van Zant is available to go talk to these folks.
Yeah, there's definitely a lack of governance that's going on there. I mean, I've sat in plenty of city council meetings, testified in city council meetings. I've never seen quite like this before. And you know, because there's this lack of respect between the two, it's just creating this larger and larger chasm. But Ida B. Wells once said, the way to right wrongs is to turn the light of truth upon them. And I think that there's now a much brighter spotlight, not only on the dysfunction that is happening there, but also there seems to be some ethical, at least, violations, if not something greater that's there. You know, in relationship to people having double and triple jobs that are happening at the same time. And, you know, we really need to have it's unfortunate. Let me frame it that way. I'm saying it is unfortunate, one, that these types of behaviors are playing out, but two, that they're going to have the inspector general come in and actually taking a look at the books, taking a look at how and where resources are flowing. And if there are, you know, any things that are happening in that space that are either illegal or are sort of skirting the law, if you will. So, and then the last point is that it's so unfortunate that we have brothers and sisters who now have this spotlight showing their inability to be able to get, not only just to get along, but to govern in a way. Again, the last part also is that we've now seen these videos now where folks from the community, of course, we're only getting a snapshot of the community, are saying that they are not happy with the job that is going on. When you are an elected official, your number one responsibility is to make sure that you are meeting the needs of the individuals who put you in office. So now that this bright spotlight that Ida B. Wells once talked about is now on Dolton and on those elected officials and others, the truth will eventually come out.
Well, Joe, I asked the mayor a series of questions last week regarding her foundation, and I said, how can a Dolton city employee be the one who sets up a foundation in your name? How can you have other city employees on the board of trustees? And how do you have a city vendor who is also one of the trustees? I specifically asked her and her PR people those questions, and I emailed all of those people except the vendor. Nobody responded. These are people who are getting taxpayer dollars. And see, I love all the people out there that said, oh man, you didn't press the mayor. No, that's why you ask the questions and you hear what they say, but you also hear what they don't say. And the bottom line is this here. The fact that the mayor and her team cannot give me those answers now raises questions about everything she said in the interview with me.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't bode well. I was watching it from a distance, and let me say something. Dolton is entirely too small. I'm in a 70,000 person town.
20,000 people.
I'm in a 70,000 person town, and so it's a third the size of my town, and we're not on national news for some stuff like this. That can never be good. And what I hope for the system, because I don't want to see nobody get in trouble. Okay, you know, don't start none, won't be none. I don't want the system to get in trouble. What I'm hoping is all we're talking about is them being petty and them being childish and her being disrespectful. There's something to be said about that, but hopefully that's all it is. The problem is, if you look at the questions that are being asked and not necessarily answered, if you're looking at the sniff and the appearance, at the very least, of impropriety, and if you're looking at the lack of transparency, being transparent, and she starts everything that she's saying with everything she does well for the community. So it's like, hey, we did this, this, and this, so it's okay if I don't let you know what I'm doing. If it's okay if I'm less than transparent, or in a worst case scenario, for those that believe that way, and she hasn't been convicted of anything, it's okay that I steal. And she is drawing entirely too much heat for what's going on there. And I'm gonna tell you this right now. If she doesn't give up the ghost with those citizens, somebody gonna come in and get the information one way or the other, okay? Whether it's the inspector general, whether it's the state attorney general, or whether it's the federal government. Somebody is going to get this information, and maybe she is staking her place in the ground where she basically comes off like a Robin Hood that people are going to support no matter what. Well, that's not necessarily going to help her. On the other hand, you've got other folks, maybe like the city clerk, for instance, that are staking their place in the ground, saying at some point, this woman's going to fall, and it's going to be about who's on her side in perception and who's not, okay? So it might be hot in here, but I'm not going to get burned because I'm going to continue trying to do the right thing and create a record for every impropriety, for everything that it is that I am doing. It's always tough when you talk in generalities and not in specifics, and she talks a lot in generalities. She does detract some, go to some other things, but at some point and someday, she's not going to be able to do that anymore.
Gavin, to Joe's point, I mean, it's 20,000 people. It's way too much damn drama for this little bitty town.
Roland, I think you're so right. And I want to echo what my other two panelists have said thus far. To me, one of the most incredible things about local government is that when you have such a small town like Dolton, for example, residents, when it comes to local government, they trust, in most cases, local government to deliver for their needs, right? Because, you're not dealing with a massive bureaucracy at the state level, at the federal level. You're dealing with your mayor, who you might see in the grocery store line. You're dealing with your city councilors, who you might see on the sidelines of a little league game. And typically that gives trust on the part of the American people to their local elected officials. And what we see time and time again is that as trust in the federal government and state government continues to decline, which level is it that Americans tend to trust the most? It's local government. It's unfortunate that episodes like these continue to happen. I'm worried that these sorts of occurrences can weaken that trust that Americans have in their local elected officials. And I also want to call out, right? You have young people, future leaders who are watching episodes like these transpire. And I think it's just really important, and I hope this serves as a reminder to elected officials at every level across the country. Young people are watching. And, if we want to make sure that, our next generation of leaders are going to be, continuing to move our country in the right direction, it's imperative that our leaders set good examples. And so I just hope that this situation gets resolved soon, and that we can also uplift some really great examples, right, of local government working and delivering for their constituents.
All right, folks. We're going to keep talking about what happens there because, again, people deserve answers. And at the end of the day, it shouldn't be this amount of drama in this small town. They got more drama in Dolton than they got in Chicago. That's how crazy this is. All right, when we come back, Vice President Kamala Harris, when she was in Selma on Sunday, she talked about the need for a ceasefire. Folks, this has played very well for the White House, and they and Democrats should be championing this because it could save Biden's presidency. We'll discuss that next right here on Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network.
You heard why we're marching, and it's really a launch. It's not even a march. We're launching.
That's right.
A 42-week campaign. March the 2nd at 10 o'clock in Raleigh and 33 other state capitals and the District of Columbia. This is a historic move to mobilize the most powerful untapped block of voters in this country, poor and low wealth voters, who make up 87 million votes. And it's never been tried before. Never been tried before in history. At the same time, same message, same focus. And when that power turns loose, they will not be able to figure out the political calculus. I don't know about you, but I'm ready to shake things up. I'm ready to get up out of the valley. I'm ready for God to put his spirit on us. I'm ready to be used to change this nation. And what we're saying is, can't we come together? Can't we come together around an agenda? You ain't got to like everything about Reverend Barber. You don't have to like everything about Sangria. You don't have to like everything about Long Choir. But can we come together and say, it's time to end poverty as the fourth leading cause of death? It's time to have $15 and a living wage indexed with inflation. So every time inflation goes up, the minimum wage goes up. It's time to have health care for all. It's time to fully fund public education. Can't we come together? It's time to protect women's right to women's health. It's time to have affordable housing for everybody. It's time to stop the proliferation of guns. Ain't no way folk ought to be able to have more guns than they have food, more guns than they have meat on their table. That makes no sense. Isn't it time for division to be ended and love to take over? Can't we organize around that? Look at your neighbor and say, neighbor, I don't need to like everything about you, but can't we organize for power? Can't we stand for justice? Can't we love everybody for just a little while? Can't we come up out of the valley? Can these bones live?
What's up, everybody? It's your girl, Latasha from the A.
And you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
NBC News reported that the original comments that Vice President Kamala Harris was going to state in Selma regarding the ceasefire between Israel and Hamas was a lot stronger than what she delivered. For those who missed it, this is what the VP said on Sunday.
What we are seeing every day in Gaza is devastating. We have seen reports of families eating leaves or animal feed, women giving birth to malnourished babies with little or no medical care, and children dying from malnutrition and dehydration. As I have said many times, too many innocent Palestinians have been killed. And just a few days ago, we saw hungry, desperate people approach aid trucks, simply trying to secure food for their families after weeks of nearly no aid reaching northern Gaza. And they were met with gunfire and chaos. Our hearts break for the victims of that horrific tragedy and for all the innocent people in Gaza who are suffering from what is clearly a humanitarian catastrophe. People in Gaza are starving. The conditions are inhumane. And our common humanity compels us to act. As President Joe Biden said on Friday, the United States is committed to urgently get more life-saving assistance to innocent Palestinians in need. Yesterday, the Department of Defense carried out its first airdrop of humanitarian assistance, and the United States will continue these airdrops. And we will work on a new route by sea to deliver aid. And the Israeli government must do more to significantly increase the flow of aid. No excuses. They must open new border crossings. They must not impose any unnecessary restrictions on the delivery of aid. They must ensure humanitarian personnel, sites, and convoys are not targeted. And they must work to restore basic services and promote order in Gaza so more food, water, and fuel can reach those in need. As I have said repeatedly since October 7, Israel has a right to defend itself. And President Joe Biden and I are unwavering in our commitment to Israel's security. Hamas cannot control Gaza. And the threat Hamas poses to the people of Israel must be eliminated. Hamas is a brutal terrorist organization that has vowed to repeat October 7th again and again until Israel is annihilated. Hamas has shown no regard for innocent life, including for the people of Gaza, who have suffered under its rule for almost 2 decades. And Hamas still holds dozens of hostages for nearly 150 days now. Innocent men and women, including American citizens, who were brutally taken from their homes and from a concert. I will repeat, the threat of Hamas poses to the people of Israel must be eliminated. And given the immense scale of suffering in Gaza, there must be an immediate ceasefire. For at least the next 6 weeks, which is what is currently on the table. This will get the hostages out and get a significant amount of aid in. This would allow us to build something more enduring, to ensure Israel is secure, and to respect the right of the Palestinian people to dignity, freedom, and self-determination. Hamas claims it wants a ceasefire. Well, there is a deal on the table. And as we have said, Hamas needs to agree to that deal. Let's get a ceasefire. Let's reunite the hostages with their families. And let's provide immediate relief to the people of Gaza.
Folks, here we go to my iPad. This NBC News story said the original draft was sent to the National Security Council for review, was, quote, was harsher on Israel about the dire humanitarian situation in the Gaza Strip and the need for more aid than were the remarks she ultimately delivered. They also say in here that 2 of the U.S. officials said the initial draft specifically called out Israel more directly about the need to immediately allow additional aid trucks in. One of them described Harris's original language as strong but not controversial. But her communications director, Kirsten Allen, said the vice president felt it was important to address the dire humanitarian situation in Gaza given recent developments and to reiterate our administration's call on Hamas to accept the terms of the hostage deal. So what you hear folks saying is, well, they didn't soften, but that was a change in tone, if you will. Gavin, you were a speechwriter for the vice president, and I want to get your just overall thoughts, on the speech. But this is a prime example of why Vice President Kamala Harris is an asset to this ticket. And if I'm the White House, and if I'm the Democratic Party, I am sending the message to the entire apparatus that her doing what she did was on point. The reality is this administration is losing in November because the coalition that elected Biden, the coalition that elected Obama to 2 terms, was in many ways driven by young people, driven by African Americans. And the Biden folks must understand that there is no way they are going to get those folks' vote unless this took place. And so Selma was the right place at the right time, and the vice president absolutely was on point. Your thoughts?
She was absolutely on point, Roland. And I think the beginning of that clip where you just saw that imagery of the vice president standing, at the foot of the Edmund Pettus Bridge. I actually interned for John Lewis during college. He and the vice president are two of my greatest heroes. And so when I see that imagery, and when I think about what that means, and I think about how the vice president spoke truth to power on Sunday, there is no better messenger for that message than the vice president. In my time when I was with the vice president, I saw what many people who have been with her for decades have seen, which is that Vice President Harris is one of the fiercest fighters for justice and for freedom that we have. And this hasn't just started during her time in the White House as vice president. This is going back to her days in San Francisco, going back to her time as a United States Senator, going back to her time even as Attorney General of California, as she's been speaking up for the issues that matter: dignity, respect, human rights. And it's what she's doing now as vice president. On that issue, on so many others, on voting rights, which of course was what she was there primarily to speak about on Sunday, on reproductive freedom. She's so smart in seeing the connections between all of these issues. She and the rest of the administration recognize, and certainly the campaign recognizes, that she is one of the most effective ambassadors and messengers on these issues. And it's going to be important moving forward for the vice president to continue to shine. And I think we're seeing the White House, we've seen the campaign recognize that the vice president shines anytime she goes out there. And so I was just so moved when I first got the notification that the vice president had made the call that she made in that speech, and to think about and to watch and to listen, to hear and to see that moment unfold. I can only imagine what it must have been like to be there in person, but certainly to watch from afar was a moment of pride. And I think it's also, the last thing I'll say, I think it's also a reminder of just how strong the vice president is on issues that we don't typically associate with the vice president, like national security and foreign policy. This vice president has been traveling the world, like I said, speaking up for issues of democracy, of human rights, was in Munich recently for the Munich Security Conference, and continues to call out injustices that she sees happening not just here in the United States, but all around the world. And I do think that, as you said, that this will continue to galvanize a Democratic base, including young voters and young voters of color.
Mustafa, look, it got a very positive response on social media. If you watch television newscasts, if you looked at, heard radio broadcasts as well. And again, for the president and many of his spokesmen, they have been resisting using the phrase ceasefire. In fact, they often said, don't even bring that up. But the fact of the matter is this here: an increasing number of people are looking at what Israel is doing, and Israel is saying, well, you've got Hamas, they're using these people as shields, but you cannot expect people to be silent when more than 25,000 Palestinians have been killed, many of them children. And so for the vice president to say, Hamas, it's now in your court, accept this ceasefire, it needed to be said, Mustafa, now.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, the vast majority of Americans are asking for that because it's common sense. And unfortunately, the administration, for whatever reason, has been moving away from common sense sorts of sets of actions and language that resonates with everyday people. You know, as you said, it's 31,000 folks who have actually lost their lives there in Gaza. I forget, it's a third of them are children. I believe you referenced that. 70,000 folks have been injured. And we know there's another 10,000 that are still underneath of the rubble. So to not ask for a ceasefire means that you are not embracing your humanity. What I appreciated about what the vice president shared is because she hit the relevant points that were so incredibly necessary. It was not only about the ceasefire, it is also about honoring the tragedy that happened on October the 7th. It is also about helping people to understand the dynamics that are playing out on the ground. Right? People don't have anything to eat. And she laid out in very vivid sorts of imagery what folks are going through. Folks don't have access to water, clean water. So not only can they not hydrate their bodies, but also they're dealing with a situation in relationship to the medical services that they can't even clean the wounds properly, let alone with the medicines that are necessary, but just to be able to scrub and get the dirt and other types of things out. So the vice president is your star player. She has always been your star player, and they have refused for whatever reason to not allow her to be in the forefront, to make sure that the spotlight was on her, because she knows how to articulate a message. But not only does she articulate a message from a political paradigm, if you will, she is also a Black woman. And she is a Black woman who understands the disproportionality that continues to happen in relationship to policy, both domestic policy and international policy. And how we have to navigate it in a very smart way, but we have to bring it forward for individuals, that we are talking about people's lives. And every day, when people turn on their television, when they look on their phone, they're seeing the bodies piling up one after the other. They're seeing the babies that have been killed. They're seeing the mothers who are wailing because of what's going on. And she was able to bring that forward in a way to say that there is a set of actions that we can do that can help people to heal. Because that is really what her message is about. It's about how do we heal in this moment? How do we make sure that we're moving forward in a just format to make sure that both Israel has some of the things that they need, they can have a state, but also the Palestinians deserve to have a state. And all of that was wrapped up in those brief but powerful words that she shared. So I hope the administration will become wiser and make sure that she has the ability to articulate important messages on a number of issues. She also resonates with young people. She resonates with folks of color. She resonates with women. So the question is, are you going to support your star player?
Joe, at the Selma 50, the 50th anniversary of Bloody Sunday, that was 9 years ago. Diane Nash, one of Dr. King's lieutenants, she was there. And there was a moment when everyone was going to walk across the Edmund Pettus Bridge. President Obama was there, First Lady Michelle Obama, former President George W. Bush, First Lady Bush as well. And Diane Nash said, absolutely, I will not march with a warmonger. This is what she told me in an exclusive interview.
It was quite an experience. Back 50 years ago, it never crossed our minds that 50 years in the future, we'd be commemorating that day. I was not happy with the fact that there was not a seating section that would have been reserved for the foot soldiers, people who actually crossed the bridge 50 years ago. I refused to march because George Bush marched, was in the photograph.
So you didn't, they grabbed you, but you didn't walk over with?
No, I did not, when it was apparent that he was going to be part of it. I think the Selma movement was about nonviolence and peace and democracy, and George Bush stands for just the opposite, for violence and war and stolen elections and
excuse me.
His administration.
There you go.
And George Bush's administration had people tortured. So I thought that this was not an appropriate event for him. I'm also concerned that the legacy of the Selma movement.
So the thing here, Joe, we're talking about Selma, Dr. King, Andrew Young, Hosea Williams, John Lewis. And so it was a proper place for the vice president to make those remarks. And we understand the president's reluctance to go there. He has not told Netanyahu that we're not going to send you weapons. We're continuing to do that. But they must understand that this is having a dramatic impact on the election. And Netanyahu don't give a damn about Biden-Harris. He wants Trump back in the White House. In fact, I'm going to pull this up. Give me a second. Just to contrast what the vice president said with what Donald Trump said today. If you want to understand the difference between the two, Donald Trump told Fox News, go to my iPad, you've got to finish the problem. You had a horrible invasion that took place that would have never happened if I was president. First of all, that ain't true. The fact of the matter is this here. If Trump becomes president, he's going to tell Israel, bulldoze them. There will be no restraints. And so Biden must understand he's got to recalibrate if he wants to have a second term. And the vice president's comments were helpful for people to go, finally, the administration is listening to us and paying attention to our feelings as voters.
Yeah, this is a big batch eliminate here. There's this argument that Kamala Harris somehow isn't as relevant, is less than popular. She's had issues with her staff. This and that is the case, and she's the weak link or whatever else. But meanwhile, back at the ranch, Joe Biden, who, if our memories aren't as short, as they shouldn't be, never ran a good campaign. The 3 times he ran for president and didn't start winning primaries at all until Brother Clyburn and those of us that are my age around and further decided that the Bernie situation was over and we squashed it. I think he was the right president for now and for this time, and he's done some good things. But he didn't win without Kamala Harris 4 years ago. He's not going to win without her now. So when I talk about making the batch eliminate, what I'm saying is that she's perceptively less than popular to some, all right? Why not have her speak from her heart and speak to people that Joe Biden right now is losing? People, my daughter's generation, they're wondering out loud about Joe Biden. And keep it all the way real, they wondered out loud about Barack Obama. Kids are kids, young folks are young folks, but they do have a lot of common sense. And 2 + 2 often equals 4 for them. And they want things to be a lot less complicated than they actually are. Is the Israeli-Palestinian question a complicated one? There's no doubt about it. But it should not be complicated or controversial when we talk about a humanitarian catastrophe. And that is what we have, okay? And so for her to be able to speak with that, to speak to it directly in a way that right now Biden's not speaking to.
Right.
I'm certain they talked about it ahead of time, but it's for her to do it in a way Biden's not speaking to help with the Muslims that he'll lose in Michigan and therefore lose Michigan, the Muslims that he'll lose in Minnesota and therefore potentially lose Minnesota, the young people that he may not connect with just because of his age, even though we think there's an answer to all those questions. This was all more than necessary, but there's absolutely a political calculus. And the last note that I'll make is that the sister's comments from before, from Selma from 9 years ago, remind you of how George W. Bush is the biggest beneficiary of the Trump phenomenon. 20 years ago, we were saying he stole an election. 20 years ago, we were calling him a warmonger and him somebody that was less than competent and didn't have it all together. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, fast forward, he's at John Lewis's funeral. He's doing all of the stuff that you would never have seen him do 20 to 25 years ago. But for those of us that don't have short memories, what she is saying to us resonates. And we're going to make sure of that, because if we aren't sure of that, Joe Biden's going to have a problem in November.
And here was the president today being asked about a ceasefire. Listen. See if we get to play. All right. Having some issues here. Give me 1 second. Let's let it see if it go through again. All right. Let me see if I can reboot it. Hold on. Let me try to get this to play again. All right. Give me 1 second. It's a short sound bite.
Because Ramadan.
But here we go.
Ceasefire. Because Ramadan, if we get into a circumstance where this continues through Ramadan, Israel and Jerusalem getting together, it could be very, very dangerous. So
he wants the ceasefire to happen before Ramadan. Again, the Think about it. This president has not even talked openly about ceasefire. And so that's what the vice president did on Sunday, was critically important. All right, gentlemen, hold tight 1 second to go to break. We come back more on Roland Martin Unfiltered of the Black Star Network. Be sure to support us in what we do. Join our Brina Funk fan club. Send your check and money order to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C., 20037-0196. Cash App, $RM Unfiltered, PayPal, R Martin Unfiltered, Venmo's RM Unfiltered, Zelle, Roland at RolandSMartin.com, Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. We'll be right back.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol,
we're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear.
Next, A Balanced Life with me, Dr. Jackie. Just who do you think you are? And maybe more importantly, who is it that you think you're trying to please? The answer to that second question is really wrapped up in the first. Think about that. Being the true, authentic you, no matter the circumstance.
But we learn the art of forgiveness, not only of forgiving one another, but forgiving ourselves. And we also learn how to love ourselves so that we can love each other.
That's next on A Balanced Life, here on Black Star Network.
Hi, this is Reggie Rock Byford. You're watching
Roland Martin, unfiltered, uncut, unplugged, and undamn believable. You hear me?
Well, Arizona Senator Kyrsten Sinema, of course, who was a Democrat, elected as a Democrat, then became an independent, announced today she's not running for re-election. She dropped this announcement on social media.
We delivered tangible results that make America safer, stronger, and more prosperous. Yet, despite modernizing our infrastructure, ensuring clean water, delivering good jobs and safer communities, Americans still choose to retreat farther to their partisan corners. These solutions are considered failures, either because they're too much or not nearly enough. It's all or nothing. The outcome, less important than beating the other guy. The only political victories that matter these days are symbolic. Attacking your opponents on cable news or social media. Compromise is a dirty word. We've arrived at that crossroad, and we chose anger and division. I believe in my approach, but it's not what America wants right now. I love Arizona, and I am so proud of what we've delivered. Because I choose civility, understanding, listening, working together to get stuff done, I will leave the Senate at the end of this year.
All right, I don't need to play the rest of that, okay? So it went on and on and on. First of all, that was a bunch of crap. I mean, here's the reality, Gavin. That is, when she got there, she was a Democrat. She turned her back on her constituents. She talked about how much she loved Congressman John Lewis, but voted against the voting rights bill. And so she voted against a bill that could have impacted private equity. And bottom line is she was in the pockets of a bunch of rich donors. So how it's called good riddance. And she's going to pocket that $10 million in campaign contributions. She knew she was going to lose. She was running third place in the polls. And so now she can convert that to a think tank or whatever the hell. But Kyrsten Sinema was never serious, and she was a thorn in the side to Democrats even though she ran as a progressive. That's not how she acted when she got there. And so, frankly, she pulled the okie doke.
That's right, Roland. I'm glad you mentioned the fact that she went from being a progressive to being a centrist, because I think a lot of people will just remember the fact that she flipped from being a Democrat to an independent, but her flip-flopping and turning her back on her constituents goes back years. And so I think it's certainly the truth that no Democrat is sad to see Senator Sinema go. Time and time again, as you said, she chose corporate interests over the well-being of her constituents and over everyday, hardworking Americans. She refused to consider changes to the filibuster rule that would have allowed the Democrats to go even further on delivering, additional historic legislation to support, again, everyday Americans. But I think what we need to focus on right now is the fact that now that she's out of the way, we have to put all of our resources behind Ruben Gallego, currently a congressman running for that Senate seat. If Kari Lake, an election denier, and I could go on and on and on, gets elected, that will only help the Republicans retake the Senate majority, and we cannot let that happen. So as we say good riddance to Senator Sinema, we have to make sure we do all that we can to get Senator, or currently Congressman, Gallego, make sure he becomes Senator Gallego from Arizona.
See, here's the problem that I have, Mustafa. Black people helped elect Richard Shelby, United States Senator from Alabama, riding on the coattails of Reverend Jackson in the 84 and 88 campaigns. Gets in, and he goes from Democrat to Republican. I have a problem when you are elected based upon a set of values, principles, and issues. And then when you get in, you decide to flip. I think if you want to flip from a Democrat to an independent, or a Democrat to a Republican, or even a Republican to Democrat, resign your seat and then run as that. But what she did was, frankly, not what the voters sent her for. They sent her to advance their progressive interest. She chose to flip and change.
Yeah, without a doubt. She bamboozled the folks in Arizona. It's very clear. She shared a narrative that a lot of people could get behind. When she was first running, she talked about being unhoused. And many people can understand how that is a real possibility for a lot of folks inside of our country, so they could see themselves reflected in some of the things that she talked about. But then when she got there, she did nothing to help lower wealth communities in any significant way. She fought against the Fight for 15. She also was a huge impediment, because I worked on both the Inflation Reduction Act and the Bipartisan Infrastructure Act, actually weakened those so that many of the dollars and additional benefits that could have gone to our most vulnerable, that shrank considerably. So, she labeled herself as someone who was of the people, from the people, and could relate because she had gone through the things that many people have gone through, and then she just changed up on folks. It's like in The Wizard of Oz, when you actually pull that curtain back and you see that the wizard is not whom you thought the wizard was. So, once again, as folks have shared, she's not going to be missed. But we also understand there's some interesting dynamics that are going on in Arizona, and folks, need to get educated on whom they should be voting for, and then making sure they're showing up and casting their ballot to make sure that we actually have someone who actually cares about everyday people, especially our most vulnerable communities.
Yeah, Joe, I mean that vote against $15 an hour was an absolute joke. And the bottom line is she got in there, got a taste of power, and then all of a sudden started collecting those lobbyist checks. And hell, she barely would have town hall meetings and talk with constituents back home.
Talking about a metamorphosis. She started off with the Green Party. It ain't like she started off as fairly liberal and then she moved over a little bit, but definitely. No, she was with the Green Party. She was all the way over there, okay? And there were some expectations that came with her running as she did and how she was positioned. But to the point that was made, once she got there, she absolutely flipped, among other things. She didn't hold corporations and rich people accountable as it pertains to raising taxes. And it's one thing to be pragmatic. You know, we can go back in our history, you know, liberal lions like Maxine Waters and Ron Dellums. And, you know, sometimes they supported things that they weren't crazy about, right? Because those are the things that they could get done. But nobody questioned where they were fundamentally politically. They didn't change with the weather like she did. And ultimately, what she did was she did a political calculus. She's got money in the bank, and she knows she wasn't going to lose. Her path, she wasn't going to win. Her path she needed Republicans because she wasn't going to get as many Democrats. And there's a question as to how real of an independent she was. So she looked at all that, saw that she was going to lose, saw that she would have less power having lost. She could step out, not run again, frankly, keep the money, and go on to the next program. But at the end of the day, it wasn't about her choosing civility and all these other things. No, you were a chameleon, you changed, and while your party is moving towards the future, you moved back toward the past, and they weren't having it. That's why Ruben Gallego was running at all, and that's why it was almost a virtual certainty that she was going to lose. The numbers weren't there, and that's why she did what it is that she did. But yes, she flipped on a whole lot of things that she shouldn't have, didn't show herself to be a true Democrat much at all when it came down to it. It's one thing if she was a moderate to begin with. That's not what she was. We can deal with that. Those have their own frustrations, but maybe you get some things done, at least with people knowing where you stand. And at the end of the day, I can disagree with you, but if I don't know where you stand, that's even worse. And that's the fundamental problem she had, because ultimately we just didn't know who the hell she was.
Oh, and there you go. All right, folks, I got to go to break. We come back. We're going to talk about capping bank fees. Also, we'll talk about online bullying, how it has tremendous negative impact on our kids. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered right here on the Black Star Network.
You heard why we're marching, and it's really a launch. It's not even a march. We're launching.
That's right.
A 42-week campaign. March the 2nd at 10 o'clock in Raleigh and 33 other state capitals and the District of Columbia. This is a historic move to mobilize the most powerful untapped block of voters in this country. That's right. Poor and low wealth voters who make up 87 million votes. And it's never been tried before. Never been tried before in history. At the same time, same message, same focus. And when that power turns loose, they will not be able to figure out the political calculus. I don't know about you, but I'm ready to shake things up. I'm ready to get up out of the valley. I'm ready for God to put his spirit on us. I'm ready to be used to change this nation. And what we're saying is, can't we come together? Can't we come together around an agenda? You ain't got to like everything about Reverend Barber. You don't have to like everything about Sangria. You don't have to like everything about Long Choir. But can we come together and say, it's time to end poverty as the fourth leading cause of death? It's time to have $15 and a living wage indexed with inflation. So every time inflation goes up, the minimum wage goes up. It's time to have health care for all. It's time to fully fund public education. Can't we come together? It's time to protect women's right to women's health. It's time to have affordable housing for everybody. It's time to stop the proliferation of guns. Ain't no way folk ought to be able to have more guns than they have food, more guns than they have meat on their table. That makes no sense. Isn't it time for division to be ended and love to take over? Can't we organize around that? Look at your neighbor and say, neighbor, I don't need to like everything about you, but can't we organize for power? Can't we stand for justice? Can't we love everybody for just a little while? Can't we come up out of the valley? Can these bones live?
Hey, yo, what's up? It's Mr. Dalvin right here. What's up? This is KC. Sitting here representing the JODECI, that's Jodeci. Right here on Roland Martin Unfiltered.
The suicide rates of black youth, folks, has increased dramatically over the last 20 years. A 2023 Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health report revealed that from 2007 to 2020, the suicide rate in black children between the ages of 10 and 17 increased by 144%. One of the contributing factors, according to a study published in the journal JAMA Psychiatry, is that black children and teens who experience racial discrimination online may develop symptoms related to post-traumatic stress disorder. The researchers found a link between those PTSD symptoms to suicidal thoughts. Joining us now is Dr. Brendisha Tynes, a professor of education and psychology at the University of Southern California, and Dr. Ashley Maxey Mormon, a clinical psychologist at Children's National Hospital and an assistant professor at George Washington University. Glad to have both of you on the show. Dr. Tynes, I'll start with you. You have these folks out here, largely white Americans. Oh, this racism stuff is overblown. These things are long behind us. No, they're not. And when we would have these, we used to have a segment called Crazy Ass White People, where you had these segments where black people are just trying to barbecue, black folks trying to deliver packages, just trying to live and be black, and folks, their racism is at play, and when you're seeing that over and over and over again, it has an impact.
It absolutely does, and I'm connected with kids in the community here in LA. They talk about experiences that they have daily, traumatic experiences with racism in person and online. And I've been studying this topic for more than 20 years, and we've seen a dramatic increase in online racism over the past 20 years. And it's consistent with the dramatic increase in suicide rates. I'm not saying that one is causing the other. I'm just saying that they're aligned.
Dr. Mormon, one of the we've also seen the impact on these various videos when we show them of unarmed black folks being shot and killed by cops. And we struggle with it because we don't want to have to show it, but there's also a flip side. If we get in the habit of saying, oh, no, we're not gonna show it, what then happens is it becomes out of sight, out of mind. And when it comes to mainstream media, mainstream white media, unless it rises to a national story, they're not gonna cover it. And so we have family members who actually said to their attorneys, no, we're going on Roland's show first because they give us a voice when these things happen. And the attorneys are thankful because they can't get white media's attention, and so then they come to us. And so that is a balancing act there. But even when it comes to those things, seeing it case after case after case impacts the psyche of black folks, especially young people.
Yeah, you're so right. This particular study that we did recently, we looked at specific experiences with exposure to online racial discrimination. But Dr. Tynes and I have done a study where we have looked at exposure to these viral videos that you're talking about, and they have been linked to post-traumatic stress symptoms. And so we know that youth who are exposed to these videos might have trauma symptoms. But just as you were saying, we also know that these videos help shine a light on what's happening to Black people in the U.S. And so there's sort of a conundrum here. Do we want our kids to be viewing these videos? And so my answer to that is we can't always protect our youth from traumatic things, and especially videos like that, but we can have conversations with them about what they're watching, what this content means to them, how it's affecting them emotionally and mentally, and we can get them connected to care if need be.
Dr. Tynes, I was talking with a mother of 2 teenagers the other day, and we were talking about how social media is totally different than when we grew up, and she said, listen, as a mother, I can't constantly monitor what they are seeing, reading, and hearing. And so what do parents out there do? I mean, how do they deal with this?
So parents have a lot of power. They can have open lines of communication with their young person and talk through what's happening and how those experiences make them feel. They can also help them to develop what Rita Walker calls psychological fortitude. And that's, being able to think about and manage the emotions that you have. And what she says is one way we can do that is to really lean into Black culture, really lean into our history and help our kids to learn what our ancestors have gone through, that they've made it through, they've made a way out of no way, and we can too.
Questions from my panel. Mustafa, you first.
Yeah, well, thank you both for not only the research that you've been doing, but how you're helping so many other folks to understand some of these complicated issues. I'm one who has done a lot of work around cumulative impacts in a number of different ways. So could you walk us through, maybe we'll start with you, Dr. Tyne, around how cumulative impacts plays a role in these sets of exposures that individuals are dealing with?
Yes, so we, in the research that I've done, we have looked at how over time, online racial discrimination is associated with depressive symptoms across 3 years. And we haven't looked at suicide ideation, but we know from longitudinal studies that there is an impact over time from having these experiences. And when we think about kids reporting that they're seeing lynchings online, they're seeing people call for the genocide of Black people. They're seeing people say Black people shouldn't have the right to vote. Seeing Black folks represented as monkeys, right? And so over time, that impacts your mental health. It impacts academic outcomes and a host of other outcomes for Black children.
Thank you.
And I'll add to that what we do know about suicide and the trajectory of suicide is that for most kiddos from early childhood through adolescence, suicide thoughts and behaviors are low, obviously, for most kiddos. But we do know for those kiddos that are experiencing higher rates of suicidal thoughts and behaviors, another trajectory, a typical one is early onset during early childhood, so as young as 3 to 5 years of age, and steadily increasing suicidal thoughts and behaviors. And then we have another trajectory, which is our teens who might experience higher suicidal thoughts and behaviors, higher rates, but at a later age, so 11 through 14 years old. So that's something to consider too when we're thinking about compounding effects as well.
Joe?
Thank you, doctors, for your wonderful work. There's a couple things that I'm reminded of, and I ask you these questions for however you want to jump in. There's two things and theories that have been out there for many of us that have been around for a long time, right? Like, first of all, that Black people don't potentially commit suicide. As a matter of fact, Chris Rock years ago told a not so tasteful joke that, well, Black people don't kill themselves, they kill each other, right? And also the second part was that we are we need to act like we're not crazy and that we're only crazy if we go and get mental health treatment. This seems to buck both of those. And so what I want to know is how well of a job are we doing rebutting this stigma that because we could go through PTSD because of what we see online, because of what we deal with. As an attorney, I can't tell you how many race-related cases I'm dealing with elementary school kids. Because we deal with all of that, how good are we doing at getting rid of this stigma that no, mental health training and mental health care is important, and it can be important and necessary from even a young age?
You know what I'm really proud of with Gen Z is that they prioritize their mental health. And I think they are sort of, in many ways, leading the way towards us, there being less stigma attached to getting mental health care. On TikTok, people, are talking about their therapists and kind of normalizing getting care for themselves. And so I see a new way being paved in the Black community through these younger, even millennials as well, sort of helping us to think about, to normalize mental health care.
I agree with Dr. Tynes. TikTok has some amazing videos that are exposing our youth to mental health care. I also feel like it starts in the home. I think it's really important for parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles to be talking to young kiddos about their mental health. It's even as simple as just validating their feelings at a very early age, allowing them to feel their feelings and making space for that. And also just really creating safe spaces for kids throughout the age from early childhood to adolescence to share what they're thinking and how they're feeling with parents or grandparents or whoever is their caregiver. So I think starting in the home is also really important.
Kevin? I'm sorry, go ahead.
We need our churches, our mosques, some of our, our schools to normalize, therapy for our kids as well. And we want young people to have culturally competent therapists. We're not advocating just for therapy in general, but a culturally competent therapist who understands racism and how it can impact people, and they can help our young people kind of develop I call it a force field around themselves that kind of buffers them against some of the negative race-related experiences that they have.
Gavin?
Doctors, I want to echo the gratitude that my co-panelists have expressed for you both. I think seeing you both reminds me of the importance of representation, because the light that you both are shedding on this issue and that Black clinicians in other areas have shed on other health disparities, we really have you to thank for all of that. And so I want to just offer my gratitude. So when I think about this issue, I can't help but think about other instances in which we see the clinical impacts of racism. And one of those areas is the maternal mortality crisis. I had the honor to work for Vice President Kamala Harris, and she has been a vice president who has made this issue a national priority, bringing doulas to the White House to discuss this issue and uplifting it in other ways. So I wanted to know, are there other, and on that issue, right, when it comes to maternal health, we've seen studies that have shown us that even controlling for socioeconomic status, Black women still suffer disproportionately when it comes to pregnancy-related complications. So I want to know, are there other sort of clinical markers of racism that you all have come across in your research besides, say, mental health or maternal mortality?
So I'll speak to that for a bit. I think there are many studies looking at physiological effects of online racism, well, specifically offline racism, exposure to racial discrimination in offline settings. There's not really anything at all, at least that we've seen right now, looking at online racism and that impact on physiological health. But we do know for sort of that traditional in-person racial discrimination, there are links to cardiovascular effects. And there are other biomarkers that help to identify
stress and how that's happening in real time in the body for Black people that are exposed to online or to offline racial discrimination. So there are a number of studies that speak to that, certainly, but not really anything on online racism yet. So that's definitely a gap area in the research.
All right. If folks want more information, where can they go? What resources can they go look online to help? Dr. Tynes, you first.
Yes, so they can email me directly, and that's at btynes@usc.edu. There are websites. I could give you links to them, and then they can come to your site and go directly to those sites.
Dr. Moorman?
As well, you all can email me at amaximore@childrensnational.org for any resources. But I know that Dr. Tynes will provide a number of resources for y'all to access.
All right. We appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
All right, folks, when we come back, how arrogant is the CEO of Kellogg's who says, hey, low-income Americans having a tough time? It's great they're eating more of our cereal. He actually said it. We're going to discuss that next on Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. Support us in what we do. Be sure to give to our Bring the Funk fan club. Senior check and money order, P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C., 20037-0196. Cash App, $RM Unfiltered. PayPal, R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle, Roland at RolandSMartin.com. Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. And, of course, download the Black Star Network app. Apple phone, Android phone, Apple TV, Android TV, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, Xbox One, Samsung Smart TV. Be right back.
When you see Trump with Putin, as I have on a few occasions, he's like the 12-year-old boy that goes to high school and meets the captain of the football team.
Look at that pathetic, broken little boy standing next to Putin.
It is really creepy. It's really creepy.
This idiot saluted a North Korean general. This is an open letter to the Trumpers, to the MAGA crowd. How many times does Donald Trump have to lie to you before you stop listening to him? Donald Trump stands under a banner that reads, "Promises kept," while lying to your face.
But Mexico is, in fact, you will soon find out, paying for the wall, okay?
We're signing a health care plan within 2 weeks. It's going to disappear. One day, it's like a miracle. It will disappear.
What promises did Donald Trump keep? None. Over 70 million people voted for this clown. How did a man whose companies have had 6 bankruptcies sell himself to you as a great businessman while having so many bankruptcies? Oh, I remember why you think he was a great businessman. Because you saw it on TV. Do you believe everything you see on TV? Do you think Tom Cruise is really a fighter pilot for the Navy? Do you think Matt Damon is really a secret agent assassin with amnesia? But you believed Donald Trump was a great businessman because of a reality TV series featuring Gary Busey and Dennis Rodman? Do you find it odd that these are Donald Trump's political allies? Do you find it odd that these are dictators that Donald Trump repeatedly praises?
And Kim Jong-un I had a good relationship with. He's a tough, smart guy.
What is it that you like about Donald Trump? Do you like how he talks about veterans?
He's a war hero because he was captured. I like people that weren't captured, okay? I hate to tell you.
Do you like how he talks about women? When more than 25 women accuse Donald Trump of rape or sexual assault, are they all lying? Are they part of the deep state? Your donations are not funding a presidential campaign. They are funding the world's most expensive criminal defense fund. If Donald Trump was such a great deal maker, how come he never got Mexico to pay for the wall? How come he never delivered a health care or infrastructure plan? What happened to those deals? All the January 6th insurrectionists gave their loyalty to Trump, so why did he leave them in prison? Why didn't he pardon any of them? He found time to pardon Jared Kushner's daddy. Trump only cares about Trump. And Trump's running for president to stay out of prison. How long are you going to be his sucker? How long are you going to be a weak, pathetic, lost follower? How long?
Cock-a-doodle-doo, folks. I'm Donald Trump.
Don Winslow does not accept donations, but we would be grateful for your retweet. We have 300 million views and are growing every day.
This is Essence Atkins.
Mr. Love King of R&B, Raheem Devon.
It's me, Sherry Shepard, and you know what you watch.
You're watching Roland Martin, Unfiltered.
Y'all, there's a lot of arrogant ass CEOs out here, but I dare say the CEO of Kellogg, Gary Pilnick, yep, he's probably in the running for the most arrogant of the year. He was on CNBC's talk show Squawk on the Street when Carl Quintanilla asked him about Kellogg's cereal for dinner advertising. Listen.
Big piece in the Journal today, just looking at the share of income going to food and sort of exploring the idea that it's hard to find eras in which food prices actually retrench and stay down. Talk about what you said today at CAGNY.
Oh, Carl, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. When we think about our consumer under pressure, there's things that we could do, but most importantly, what this category could do. The cereal category has always been quite affordable, and it tends to be a great destination when consumers are under pressure. So some of the things that we're doing is first messaging. We got to reach the consumer where they are. So we're advertising about cereal for dinner. If you think about the cost of cereal for a family versus what they might otherwise do, that's going to be much more affordable. The other places that we like to go is we talk about making sure we have the right pack at the right price in the right place. So having a different size pack that'll have a different price point, that'll take some pressure off the consumer while they're shopping. So those are some of the things that we're doing. But in general, the cereal category is a place that a lot of folks might come to because the price of a bowl of cereal with milk and with fruit is less than $1. So you can imagine why a consumer under pressure might find that to be a good place to go.
Right. I'm all for innovation and marketing, but the idea of having cereal for dinner, is there the potential for that to land the wrong way?
We don't think so. In fact, it's landing really well right now, Carl. When we look at all of our data, of course, we would know that breakfast cereal is the #1 choice for in-home consumption. We understand that for breakfast. It turns out that over 25% of our consumption is outside the breakfast occasion. A lot of it's at dinner, and that occasion continues to grow, as well as the snacking occasion. But cereal for dinner is something that is probably more on trend now, and we would expect to continue as that consumer is under pressure.
I have to admit, as a busy mom, I've had cereal for dinner more than once recently. So, Gary, I guess maybe your marketing is working on me. I'm wondering about some of the conversations that you've had to have with some of your bigger clients, you know, Walmart's, Target's, as they're trying to make sure that...
Well, that didn't sit well with a lot of folks who felt that there was a tone-deaf campaign aimed at struggling families. Let's go to our panel. Joe, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's actually appalling to suggest that, hey, you know, I'm marketing this way because basically, you know, a whole lot of y'all can't do no better. So why don't you go ahead and have some Fruit Loops for dinner? Now, there are those of us that back in the day or every now and then, you know, might grab some cereal because we want to, but not because we have to, okay? Among other things, too. Even if you get past, you know, all of the rest, cereal typically, and the ones that they're particularly, you know, flinging for us, Frosted Flakes, you know, Fruit Loops, et cetera, they're pretty unhealthy. Apple Jacks, pretty unhealthy, okay? And so what you're encouraging is an unhealthy option that happens to be cheap. And so for dinner, because people can't do any better. So here's your beacon of hope, right? And so the suggestion that undermines it is not well taken, it's not well appreciated, and it's actually tone deaf at best because this isn't the discussion that they ought to be having. You can sell plenty of cereal without making the suggestion that this ought to sell with poor folks because they can't do any better. So they can do better as it pertains to that presentation, and really they should be.
Gavin?
Yeah, Roland, I want to echo that. It's incredibly insulting, and it's honestly yet another example of a millionaire executive out of touch with life as an everyday American. This man, the CEO, is making not one, not two, not three, but $4 million a year, including bonuses. And he has the nerve to tell hardworking Americans, everyday Americans, that they should eat cereal for dinner. And it's not just Kellogg, by the way. Recently, we saw an executive with PepsiCo talking about ways that Americans can make Doritos into side dishes. So not only is all of this insulting, but honestly, it amounts to corporate sleight of hand. It's to distract us from the fact that these CEOs are saying all of this as their companies continue to raise the prices of food, not because that food is more expensive to make, but because of greed. That's why this has been termed greedflation. President Biden himself has been talking about this issue, has been talking about shrinkflation. And I expect the president, especially this Thursday night during a State of the Union, to really lean into the power of the bully pulpit to call out this corporate greed. And in my opinion, this is something that Democrats should be doing more and more. I think back in the day, there was this understanding that the Republican Party was the party for the rich and powerful, while the Democratic Party was the party of the working class. And I think it's really important that the Democrats lean into that message again. And, these CEOs on this issue make the perfect villain. Back in December, President Biden said in one of his speeches that any corporation that's not brought their prices back down, it's time to stop the price gouging. And so I expect, again, the president to continue to lean into this messaging, because I really do think it resonates with everyday Americans who are tired of seeing corporations continue to take advantage of their market power, continue to take advantage of some tough times that people have fallen on. And I expect the administration to continue to keep their foot on the gas as they continue to put pressure on companies to say enough is enough.
Well, Mustafa.
I mean, what more do you say? I mean, Kellogg made $14 billion in revenue in 2023. I'll say it again, $14 billion in 2023. So do you really expect these folks who are running these companies, who are making huge amounts of money, to care about food insecurity, which is what everyday people are often dealing with? We got 44 million people in our country who go to bed hungry every night. 1 in 5 children are suffering because they can't access healthy and affordable food. So if this individual, the head of this multi-conglomerate, wants to actually do something that's helpful, take some of that revenue and begin to change the dynamics that are happening both in rural and urban communities across our country. And that's what it's about. And our letters to them and our emails to them should be about how are you going to redirect some of this profit back into addressing the food insecurity that's happening across our country.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy, as you said, $14 billion. So, dude, let's stop tripping here. But that's what we see out of many of these companies. They also now are complaining because the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, they have come out with some guidelines capping credit card fees at $8. Some people could pay up to $32 when it comes to these fees. The American Banking Association, they are not happy about these fees. They've come out blasting the Biden administration. And then, they always do this one here. Oh, this could have a negative impact. It could cause other fees to actually increase. Yeah, and I love this one here. This is going to reduce competition and increase the cost of credit. Really? Really? Here's President Biden speaking about the new credit card rule during his Competition Council meeting.
Under the law, banks are not supposed to charge late fees that are higher than the cost banks have to engage to collect the late payment. But we estimate banks are generating 5 times more in late fees than it costs to collect late payments. They're padding their profit margins and charging hardworking Americans more than a cumulative effort number, $14 billion in 2022. With the announcement of this new rule, late fees are now going down to $8 instead of the current average of $32 late fee payments. This action will collectively save families $10 billion in credit card late fees every year. That's the average of $220 in savings annually for more than 45 million Americans who typically have to pay late fees. It's a lot of money. And let me close with this. Fair competition is the key to my economic vision. To build an economy from the middle out and the bottom up, not the top down. And it's working. Wages are up more than prices. Unemployment has reached historic lows. Families are finally getting a little breathing room. Prices are still too high, and they shouldn't be this high. That's why we're going to do everything we can to keep lowering costs for hard-working families.
Well, and of course, you know, the banks are always going to say the whole deal. I mean, I remember, Joe, when there were hearings and they were like, you know, we've got to have these ATM fees because, you know, it's the cost of servicing the machines.
Roland, listen, we have got litigation on this right now. In fact, tell folks to look up McCune Law Group banking fees, and you'll see this credit issue is right next door to this banking issue. Basically, what has happened is the banks figure this into their business model. The reason why Wells Fargo bought Wachovia is because Wachovia had a lot of us kind of banks where people have bank accounts, but they have overdraft. They figure overdraft into their business model. We've been fighting this battle for a very, very long time. And so the suggestion that when you lower a fee from $32 to $8 related to a credit card and somehow that stifles competition. No, actually what it does is it does something against your business model, and that's why you're fighting against it. And most recently, as it pertains to these banking fees, nonprofits can actually be plaintiffs. So this is another thing. I ain't here to advertise like that, but they can actually be plaintiffs in these situations because this thing has gone roughshod and it's happened for a very, very long time where this figures into someone's business model and there's a suggestion that somehow it's non-competitive or somehow it's going to negatively affect people when they don't have huge credit card fees for late payment, huge overdraft fees for an overdraft. When they take 3 or 4 checks, and you know we regular, right? Sometimes we hoping this one makes it through. We know these two will make through. They change the order to maximize the fees. No, it's real hot. It's been going on like that for a long, long time. So the suggestion that this is anything but padding profits really is dishonest.
Gavin.
Yeah, and I think one thing it's important for us to keep in mind is that late fees, studies have shown, disproportionately burden folks in low income and Black communities. So the relief that the administration has delivered today or will be delivering will serve to benefit our community in incredible ways. I also want to look to the future a little bit. Let's not forget that during the Trump administration, there were all-out efforts to gut the CFPB, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. So if Americans are happy with these actions that the Biden administration is taking to cut down on late fees and other junk fees, they should understand that their choice in November should not be any clearer, should not be any easier. If you want more of these actions, vote for the Biden-Harris ticket. If you want for the agencies that are seeking to bring down these fees to be gutted, you vote for the other ticket. And I also think it's important for Americans to keep in mind that this announcement today is not happening in a vacuum. This administration has been working to bring down costs in a number of ways. The president today just announced this new strike force, and it's going to be looking at issues like healthcare. How can we reduce the costs associated with accessing healthcare? And of course, the administration has already delivered on that in huge ways through the Inflation Reduction Act and capping the cost of insulin for our seniors, which, by the way, will also disproportionately benefit Black seniors who are disproportionately affected from type 2 diabetes. They're also going to be looking to reduce fees when it comes to cable billing and a whole host of other issues. By some estimates, all of this work should save American families $20 billion in junk fees on an annual basis. And of course, I also believe that this Thursday, the president is really going to lean into this message, because he did that last year during the State of the Union. He announced this all-out war on junk fees, and the reception could not have been any more positive. So I expect him to do that again this Thursday, because, Roland, I don't know about you, I don't like junk fees, I don't like late fees, I don't like any of those fees. So I've never met anyone who does. So I expect the administration to continue to press hard on this work.
Mustafa, I mean, again, the banks crack me up with this, we just, we're so poor. I mean, what are we going to do?
I mean, it's hilarious if it wasn't so deadly and destructive to our communities. First of all, I appreciate what Joe and Kevin just shared. And I also appreciate, because I call out when somebody's doing something well and when somebody isn't doing something well. And I think the president, in helping to get more dollars back into people's pockets, is an important step. And he's been doing it in a number of different ways. But getting back to the banks, because I like talking about banks. They made $1.1 trillion, $1.1 trillion of credit card debt that's currently out there. And we know that they are the ones that are holding that. They also understand that if you miss a payment, you might go from a 13% interest rate all the way up to 20+% interest rate. So they understand the game. Joe shared with us, that there is actually a systemic set of actions that are in place, and understanding who are our most vulnerable and how do we get over on them. Because they understand that in our community, we've got the wealth gap. They also understand that often we're living paycheck to paycheck. And once they get us caught up in this cycle, they continue to make money hand over fist on us, late fees, and then different types of fees that are a part of this process. The average person in our country right now is carrying about $6,000 worth of credit card debt. And they know that most people don't have much disposable income, so you're going to get caught in these cycles. And many people have seen either the videos or lessons that people have shared about how if you just pay the bare minimum, you could be paying for 20, 30, 40, sometimes even 50 years to end up paying off the debt. So anytime, whether it is this current president or another president, can begin to lower, the gap that exists, it's just beneficial for everyday folks. So I applaud the president for the couple of these actions that he's doing and helping to keep more money into our pockets, but also in checking the banks that have continued to make huge amounts of profits off of the backs of everyday people.
Well, they're going to keep doing what they do, and that's why you've got to have a Consumer Financial Protection Bureau challenging them every way they can. And so when they start doing all their whining, complaining, you go, yeah, whatever. And remember, Republicans, they tried their best to shut the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau down because they were trying to protect these companies who have been screwing over American taxpayers over and over and over. Going to a break, we'll be coming back with more Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network.
You heard why we're marching, and it's really a launch. It's not even a march. We're launching.
That's right.
A 42-week campaign. March the 2nd at 10 o'clock in Raleigh and 33 other state capitals and the District of Columbia. This is a historic move to mobilize the most powerful untapped block of voters in this country. That's right. Poor and low wealth voters who make up 87 million votes. And it's never been tried before. Never been tried before in history. At the same time, same message, same focus. And when that power turns loose, they will not be able to figure out the political calculus. I don't know about you, but I'm ready to shake things up. I'm ready to get up out of the valley. I'm ready for God to put his spirit on us. I'm ready to be used to change this nation. And what we're saying is, can't we come together? Can't we come together around an agenda? You ain't got to like everything about Reverend Barber. You don't have to like everything about Sangria. You don't have to like everything about Long Choir. But can we come together and say, it's time to end poverty as the fourth leading cause of death? It's time to have $15 and a living wage indexed with inflation. So every time inflation goes up, the minimum wage goes up. It's time to have health care for all. It's time to fully fund public education. Can't we come together? It's time to protect women's right to women's health. It's time to have affordable housing for everybody. It's time to stop the proliferation of guns. Ain't no way folk ought to be able to have more guns than they have food, more guns than they have meat on their table. That makes no sense. Isn't it time for division to be ended and love to take over? Can't we organize around that? Look at your neighbor and say, neighbor, I don't need to like everything about you, but can't we organize for power? Can't we stand for justice? Can't we love everybody for just a little while? Can't we come up out of the valley? Can these bones live?
What's up, y'all? This is Wendell Haskins, a.k.a. Win Hogan at the original T Golf Classic. And you know I watch Roland Martin Unfiltered.
All right, y'all, welcome back to Roland Martin Unfiltered. Okay, so you know what? The folks at the Tennessee Holler do some amazing work, y'all. But if you want to understand how absolutely outrageous Republicans are, they are trying, now they always love talking about local control and big government and small government. Do you know what they do in Tennessee? Now remember, they basically disbanded the Citizens Review Board in Nashville. Now they're trying to pass laws in the state capitol negating laws that cities pass to govern their police departments. So yesterday, this Republican was going to introduce this bill, but Tyree Nichols' family showed up, then he backed off, so he's going to reintroduce it later. Watch this.
Mother and father of Tyree Nichols. They are here advocating for just laws and against 1931. Just want to thank you for your work in Memphis and Shelby County and for our country to end the police brutality epidemic.
They're hurting so badly, but they put in the work to get a local ordinance passed to make sure that this never happens to another person again. And so we honor them for that work and hope that this body doesn't undo that work.
You have demonstrated a loving, sharing, and caring spirit, and I would hope that we continue to display that spirit. The individuals back home in Memphis and Shelby County stand with you and support you and want you to know that we are going to continue to fight with you. Parents' nightmare is for their children to precede them in death. One of the hardest pains in the world to heal is a heartache. So I'd like to honor them as well and have a moment of silent prayer for their son, Tyree Nichols. Thank them for being here. Thank them for having the courage, the fortitude to move ahead with honoring his legacy by actual work that will change the justice system. A legacy of justice. It's the most unnatural thing in the world to have to bury a child.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I recognize that I'm out of order, but we have one bill left on the calendar, and Representative Gillespie and I have been working diligently on this with some possible amendatory language. I would ask that this bill be rolled to next available space, next available calendar on Thursday.
Roll to Thursday.
So they rolled it to Thursday because they were so embarrassed that Tyree Nichols' family was present. Mustafa, again, if people want to understand why elections matter, these fascists in Tennessee, these white Republicans, they are so hell-bent on protecting cops, they are going to override what the city council in Memphis did. So they're saying, damn your city, that you fund your police department, we're going to tell you what to do and how to govern your police department.
Yeah, it is about making sure that they continue to have power to frame out the direction, not only for the state, but all the way down to local municipalities. You know, we see these dynamics that are playing out in Tennessee. We've seen them before. We saw them in Mississippi when they wanted to put in their own system there in Jackson. We saw it in Flint, Michigan, when the state there, brought in and had all these different dynamics going on that were not healthy and caused the Flint water crisis. So we see what happens when you have these individuals who are power hungry and think that they know better than the local folks who have elected their own officials to design systems that best represent what local needs look like. So this is just another example, but it is also the antidote to this type of foolishness, once again, is understanding the power that exists inside of your vote and utilizing it both on the local, the county, and the state and the federal level.
This is the Nichols family right here speaking out on this bill.
Because these pretextual stops, you know, when they stopped our son, Tyree, they came up with all these different excuses as to why they stopped him. But as we all know, none of those excuses panned out. And so I think what those people don't understand, these pretextual stops, all they doing is harassing us, the black citizens of Memphis. We just had another shooting yesterday, this morning. They said that the gentleman reached for their gun as the reason why they had to shoot and kill him. Well, you know, they said that about my son, too. They said that he reached for the gun, and we all know that in the video, it doesn't show anywhere where Larry was reaching for any gun. So I don't understand what the problem is. I hear people saying that they use these pretextual stops in order to find drugs or to do these type of different things. But how many, statistically, how many arrests have been made behind these pretextual stops? 0.1%. So, really, what's the problem?
It prevents locals from not enforcing state law. You are correct.
Right. It prevents locals from having control over their own police practices, which is why Tyree Nichols' family is against it. Just put people of color in harm's way, which is what Tyree Nichols' family was telling you. Does that impact your thinking at all there? Like, that they say this impacts people of color more and that these pretextual stops don't actually lower crime rates? Does that matter to you? Well,
I don't believe that. Anyone can get data from anything.
So what
and
data
make it into whatever you want it to be.
What data are you working?
Look at the demographics of the city of Memphis.
What data are you working from? The demographics of the city of Memphis?
No, I'm saying that's what you were talking about. Of course the data would point to that.
I'm asking what your data says. What data are you using? Because I asked Brent Taylor, he didn't really seem to have any data. Is there somewhere you can point us for your data, John?
I have been targeted by police so often.
Most of the state representatives on this committee sponsored a resolution to honor Tyree Nichols' life. If you truly want to honor his memory, I'm asking that you oppose this bill today. Y'all talk about how important data is, and this is going to nullify that.
Chairman Crawford, we have 16 ayes and 5 noes.
Bill moves on to calendar and rules.
It's just crazy, Joe, that city councils, I mean, their whole deal is, we don't give a damn if you're Memphis or Nashville. We're going to tell you what to do. Look, in Missouri, the governor controls the commission that oversees the Kansas City Police Department. The state tried to take over the St. Louis Police Department. They do not want to see accountability. In Alabama, the Attorney General of Alabama got a cop released from prison who killed an unarmed black person. Shorten their sentence. I mean, this is how these people, they do not want to see any police accountability whatsoever.
And it also speaks to this larger issue of local control. They'll talk about hands off and local control unless and until they know that they don't have the numbers locally. And so the state reaches in and changes things. You've seen this state by state, things happening in terms of ways people are, judges are getting elected in black cities, et cetera, in Alabama and otherwise. They will say on the judicial side, as it pertains to legal things, you know, we used to have these arguments about judicial activism versus judicial strength. Do you believe in legislating from the bench? They'll say that we don't legislate from the bench and we believe in hands off. We're judicial restraintists unless and until it's time to change abortion, when you know that the legislature is not going to be behind you and you know that the people aren't going to be behind you. So this is why elections matter. This is why elections are important, because at the end of the day, you know, here's the solace I take in it. There's going to be a fight. There'll continue to be a fight. But the solace and the good news is that this is happening the way that it is because they know they're outnumbered. Where they're not outnumbered, they're getting ready to be outnumbered. We talk about 2043 all the time. But in a lot of places, and as it pertains to certain opinions and points of view and certain issues, they are outnumbered. And so, therefore, they have to be creative about ways to be in charge. So they're fine with judicial restraintism unless they need to be activists. They're fine with having their hands off unless their hands need to be on because people have a different opinion. And so people have to be passionate about, hopefully this underscores the urgency of this election and of every election. You know, it's Super Tuesday, a lot of places right now. We've got to vote and not mess around with this thing because they're going to take away as much as they possibly can.
Seconds each, Gavin, Mustafa. Gavin, go. Give it a go.
Yes, I'm going to say, look, one of my fondest memories of my time at the White House was being able to meet the Tennessee Three, Reps Jones, Pearson, and Johnson. I want to tip my hat to them. I want to tip my hat to the many other Democratic state lawmakers who are in Republican-controlled state houses around the country. This just comes down to hypocrisy and what we just listened to and what we just saw. It's not about local control. It's about Republican control, and it's anti-democratic. They turned off the microphones when the Tennessee Three tried to speak up for gun control legislation last year. And we've seen these assaults on our democracy continue to happen in these Republican-controlled state houses on this issue, on access to reproductive freedom, on the right to vote, on book bans. And we need to wake up. We need to wake up. Joe just mentioned today is Super Tuesday in North Carolina. Voters will be voting in the primaries for the gubernatorial election. And in many cases, the reason why so many of these Republicans in these state houses stay in office is because they run unopposed cycle after cycle because we're asleep to what's going on. And so it's time for us to wake up. And I do think that instances like these help wake us up. So we got to wake up and we got to stay awake as we see these threats and assaults on democracy happening state by state.
Mustafa?
Yeah, I mean, it's real simple. You have power. Use your power by making sure that you're voting. You're voting in individuals who care about your community and individuals who will also help to make change happen. So you have power unless you give it away.
All right, then. Gentlemen, I appreciate it. Thank you so very much. Kevin, Joe, Mustafa, thanks for joining us. Folks, that's it for us. We got to go. In a few minutes, I'm going to be on Canadian broadcast television covering Super Tuesday. We're going to be, of course, breaking it all down for you tomorrow as well. The election results tonight all across the country, so tune in to that. And, of course, we're going to have a live State of the Union coverage right here from our Black Star Network studios on Thursday as well, beginning at 8 p.m. So prepare for that as well, folks. That's it. Don't forget, join the Bring the Funk fan club. Send your ticket money order to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C., 20037-0196. Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle, Roland at RolandSMartin.com. Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. And be sure to download the Black Star Network app. Apple phone, Android phone, Apple TV, Android TV, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, Xbox One, Samsung Smart TV. I'll see y'all tomorrow. Holla! Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch! I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?